Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of his ship with heavy steps. The communication screens around him showed nothing but static and empty signals. For 3 weeks now, he had been trying to reach the human colonies scattered across the outer rim of space. New Haven, Prosperity Station, Terra Nova, and 12 other settlements had all gone quiet at the same time. Jake stopped in front of the main display and rubbed his tired eyes. He had not slept well in days. His sister Emma lived on New Haven, with her husband and 2 young children. The last message he received from her was 3 weeks ago, a simple video call where she complained about the weather and asked when he would visit next. Commander Lisa Adams approached him from the sensor station. She carried a data pad in her hands and her face looked pale. Jake knew that expression meant bad news was coming. "Sir, we have finished scanning the area where New Haven should be located," Lisa said quietly. "The colony is gone, all of it." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean gone?" "The orbital platforms have been destroyed. The surface installations show massive damage from orbital bombardment. There are debris fields everywhere, but no signs of life." Lieutenant Commander Ryan Carter jogged up to them from the communication station. His young face was flushed with excitement and fear. "Captain, we are receiving a priority message from Earth Command. Admiral Hayes wants to speak with all ship commanders immediately." The main screen flickered and showed Admiral Patricia Hayes sitting in her office on Earth. She was an older woman with gray hair and deep lines around her eyes. Jake had served under her for 10 years and had never seen her look so grim. "All colonial defense vessels are ordered to return to Earth immediately," Admiral Hayes began. "We have confirmed that 17 human colonies have been completely destroyed in the past 4 weeks. The attacks were carried out by the Zephyrian Collective." Jake felt anger rise in his chest like hot metal. The Zephyrians had appeared at the edge of human space 6 months ago. They were tall reptilian beings with 4 arms and thick crystal-like armor covering their bodies. When they first made contact, they claimed to be peaceful explorers looking for new worlds to study and possibly settle. The human government had welcomed them carefully. Trade agreements were signed, cultural exchanges were planned. Some Zephyrian diplomats had even visited Earth and seemed genuinely interested in learning about human civilization. "Admiral, what about survivors from the colonies?" Jake asked, though he already feared the answer. "There are no survivors, Captain Morrison," Admiral Hayes replied. "The Zephyrians do not take prisoners. Our investigation teams found evidence that they strip mine entire planets after destroying all life forms. They consume everything of value and leave nothing behind." Jake closed his eyes and thought of Emma laughing during their last conversation. She had been excited about her daughter starting school and her son learning to walk. Now they were all gone, turned to ash by aliens who had pretended to be friends. "The Zephyrian main fleet is moving toward our core systems," Admiral Hayes continued. "Long-range sensors show approximately 300 vessels approaching. Earth, they will reach our outer defenses in approximately 72 hours, Lisa Adams stepped forward. "Admiral, what are our orders?" "Our colonial defense ships are not equipped to fight a full-scale war." Admiral Hayes was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. "Captain Morrison, you and the other colonial commanders are to report to Earth Command immediately upon arrival. You will be transferred to new vessels and given new missions. The Zephyrians have made a critical error in judgment." "What kind of error, Admiral?" "They attacked our families. They destroyed our homes. They killed our children." Admiral Hayes leaned forward in her chair. "They are about to learn that humans are not the peaceful explorers they believed us to be. Earth has been preparing for this possibility for 50 years. The communication ended and the bridge fell silent. Jake looked around at his crew members. These were good people who had signed up to protect human colonies and explore new worlds. None of them had expected to become soldiers in a war for survival. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez spoke up from his station. "Captain, what did the Admiral mean about new vessels? Our ships are already the best in the colonial fleet." Jake shook his head. "I do not know, Danny. but I have a feeling we are about to discover things about Earth that they never taught us in the Academy. Dr. Amy Sullivan, the ship's medical officer, joined the group. Sir, I have been monitoring communications from other colonial ships. The crews are scared but angry. Everyone has lost someone in these attacks. Good, Jake said, surprising himself with the coldness in his voice. Fear will keep us alive, but anger will help us win. As the Nighthawk began its journey back to Earth, Jake stood alone in his quarters looking at pictures of Emma and her family. His sister had always teased him about being too serious, too focused on military duty. She said he needed to learn how to relax and enjoy life. Now Emma was dead, along with thousands of other innocent people who had only wanted to build new lives among the stars. The Zephyrians had killed them without warning or mercy. They had destroyed entire worlds as if human lives meant nothing at all. Jake felt something cold and hard, settling in his chest where his heart used to be. The peaceful explorer part of him was dying, replaced by something darker and more dangerous. He could feel the same change happening to his crew, and probably to every other human who had lost someone in the attacks. Over the ship's communication system, he heard Danny Rodriguez talking to the engine crew about weapon modifications. Dr. Sullivan was researching Zephyrian anatomy to find their weak points. Even the usually quiet navigation officer was studying attack patterns and tactical maneuvers. The Zephyrians had wanted to destroy humanity, but instead they had awakened something that had been sleeping in human nature, something that their ancestors had used to climb to the top of Earth's food chain millions of years ago. As Earth grew larger on the main screen, Jake made a promise to his dead sister. The aliens who killed her would learn that humans were much more dangerous than they appeared. They would discover that attacking human families was the worst mistake any species could make. The dragons of Earth were waking up, and they were very, very hungry. Fleet Admiral Kevin Thompson stood in a room buried deep under the mountains of Colorado. The walls were covered with screens showing images of space, enemy ships, and star maps. Red lights blinked everywhere as computers calculated the approaching danger. In 72 hours, the Zephyrian fleet would reach Earth's outer defenses. Colonel Grace Mitchell walked up to Admiral Thompson with a datapad in her hands. She was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Sir, our analysis shows the enemy fleet consists of 300 vessels. Each ship is roughly the size of a major city. Our conventional defense fleets will not last more than 10 minutes against their superior weapons and shields. Admiral Thompson nodded slowly. He was a man in his 60s with gray hair and scars from old battles. He had been preparing for this day for most of his adult life. Then it is time to wake up the dragons, Grace. Colonel Mitchell smiled for the first time in weeks. Project Dragonfire is ready for activation, sir. All crews have been selected and trained. The ships are fueled and armed. In another part of the underground complex, Captain Ben Parker sat in a briefing room with 46 other ship commanders. These were not the usual military officers who commanded exploration vessels and patrol ships. These men and women had all lost everything in the Zephyrian attacks. Their families were dead. Their homes were destroyed. Their colonies were nothing but floating debris in space. Captain Jake Morrison sat near the front of the room. His face showed no emotion, but his hands were clenched into fists. Next to him sat Commander Lisa Adams, who had requested transfer to the new program after learning her parents died on Terra Nova. Behind them, Captain Tony Williams stared at the wall with empty eyes. His wife and 3 children had been living on New Haven when the Zephyrians attacked. Dr. Helen Brooks entered the room carrying a small device. She was the head scientist for Project Dragonfire, a program that had been hidden from the public for 50 years. She was a small woman with wild gray hair and intense blue eyes that seemed to see through people. Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to see something that will change everything you think you know about human military capability, Dr. Brooks said as she activated her device. The lights dimmed and holographic images filled the air above their heads. The images showed sleek, black ships unlike anything in the human fleet. These vessels looked like living creatures rather than machines. They had smooth curves and sharp edges that seemed designed for killing. Their hulls reflected no light, and their engines glowed with a dark red energy. Captain Morrison leaned forward in his chair. "What are those things?" "These are Dragon-class assault ships," Dr. Brooks replied. "For 50 years, Earth's best scientists and engineers have been designing the ultimate predator vessels. While the galaxy sees humans as peaceful explorers, we have been preparing for exactly this situation." Commander Rick Stone raised his hand. "How many of these ships do we have?" 47 Dragon-class vessels are ready for immediate deployment. Each ship is crewed by people who have lost everything to the Zephyrians. You are not just soldiers anymore. You are humanity's vengeance given physical form. The holographic display changed to show the interior of one of the ships. The bridge looked nothing like a normal human vessel. The walls were covered with weapon controls and targeting systems. The captain's chair sat in the center like a throne surrounded by screens showing every possible angle of attack. Dr. Brooks continued her explanation. Each dragon ship is equipped with artificial intelligence systems that have been programmed with the tactical knowledge of Earth's greatest military minds. But more importantly, these AI systems have been designed to enhance human aggression and hunting instincts. Captain Parker stood up from his seat. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means that when you link with your ship's AI, you will become the perfect human predator. Your anger will be focused into cold calculation. Your desire for revenge will be channeled into tactical superiority. You will think and act as humans did when they first learned to hunt in packs millions of years ago." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. These were not just advanced weapon systems. They were designed to change the crews into something more dangerous than normal humans. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos spoke from the back of the room. "Will we still be human when this is over?" Dr. Brooks looked at her with sympathetic eyes. "That depends on how badly you want to make the Zephyrians pay for what they did to your families." Admiral Thompson entered the briefing room and walked to the front. "The enemy fleet will arrive in 68 hours. You have that much time to bond with your ships and complete final preparations. I want to be very clear about your mission. You are not being sent to defend Earth. You are being sent to hunt." Captain Morrison felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Hunt, sir? The Zephyrians believe they are apex predators. They have conquered dozens of species across the galaxy. They think humans are weak because we prefer trade and diplomacy over warfare. They are about to learn that we choose peace only when it serves our purposes." Admiral Thompson activated his own holographic display. It showed the positions of Zephyrian forces throughout human space. "Your orders are simple. Find them, kill them. Make sure the survivors spread the word that humanity is not prey." Over. The next few hours, each captain was taken to their assigned dragon ship. Jake Morrison stood in the hangar looking up at his vessel. The ship was called Night Terror, and it lived up to its name. The hull was perfectly black and seemed to absorb all light that touched it. Weapon ports dotted its surface like the spots on a predator's hide. As Jake walked up the boarding ramp, he felt the ship's AI connecting to his mind. The sensation was strange at first, like having another person's thoughts mixed with his own. But gradually it became comfortable, natural, as if he had always been connected to this deadly machine. I spoke to him in a voice that sounded like his own, but colder. "Welcome aboard, Captain Morrison. Are you ready to become what humanity needs you to be?" Jake sat in the captain's chair and felt power flowing through every part of the ship. Weapon systems came online. Engines hummed with barely contained energy. Sensors reached out into space like invisible claws searching for prey. "Yes," Jake replied, and meant it completely. "Let us show these aliens what Earth breeds when they threaten our families." The Zephyrian scout fleet moved through space like a pack of hunting beasts. Commander Zixtholer stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. Earth looked peaceful and defenseless, just like all the other worlds his people had conquered. Zixtholer was a veteran warrior who had personally overseen the extinction of 23 different species. He was nearly 9 feet tall with thick crystal armor covering his reptilian body. 4. Powerful arms ended in clawed hands that had torn apart countless enemies. His people called him the World Eater because he left nothing alive behind him. "Commander, we are detecting 47 human vessels approaching our position," reported his tactical officer. The younger Zephyrian's voice carried excitement at the prospect of easy battle. CyX Tholer made a sound that was the Zephyrian equivalent of laughter. 47 ships against our advance force of 60. These mammals truly learn nothing from watching their colonies burn. What Commander Zixtholer did not understand was that these were not the same exploration ships his forces had easily destroyed before. These were something entirely different, something that had been hidden in the shadows of human space for decades. Captain Tony Williams sat in the command chair of his dragon ship, Black Dragon. The vessel moved through space with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large and deadly. Around him, his bridge crew worked with cold precision that would have frightened their former selves. "Dragonwing, this is Black Dragon," Tony spoke into his communication system. His voice was calm but carried an edge of barely controlled hunger. "Time to show these reptiles what Earth breeds when they make us angry." The 47 dragon ships spread out in attack formation. They moved like a pack of wolves surrounding prey, each vessel knowing exactly where the others would be without needing constant communication. The AI systems had linked their crews into a shared hunting consciousness that felt natural and terrifying at the same time. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos piloted her ship, Crimson Fang, toward the enemy formation. She had been a peaceful colonial administrator before the Zephyrians killed her husband and children. Now she was something else entirely, something that enjoyed the prospect of causing pain to her enemies. "Targeting 3 enemy vessels," Maria reported. Her fingers moved across weapon controls with the skill of someone who had been born to kill. "Beginning attack run." The dragon ships struck without warning. Their black hulls made them nearly invisible against the darkness of space until the moment they opened fire. Streams of plasma energy tore through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper instead of advanced alien technology. Commander Zixtholer watched in shock as 3 of his ships exploded in the first seconds of battle. "Impossible! Human weapons are inferior to ours. How are they penetrating our defenses?" His tactical officer stared at his screens with growing fear. "Commander, these vessels are using weapon signatures we have never seen before. Their energy output is beyond anything in our database." Captain Jake Morrison guided Night Terror through the enemy formation like a shark moving through a school of fish. His ship's AI whispered targeting information directly into his mind while he selected which Zephyrian vessel would die next. The connection between man and machine had become so complete that he could no longer tell where his thoughts ended and the ship's consciousness began. "2 destroyers moving to flank us," reported his weapons officer, Commander Lisa Adams. She had changed just as much as Jake during their bonding with the dragon technology. Her former kindness had been replaced with cold, tactical thinking. "Let them come," Jake replied. He spun Night Terror in a tight spiral that brought all of his weapons to bear on both enemy ships simultaneously. Twin beams of focused energy struck the Zephyrian vessels amidships, cutting through their armor like heated knives through soft metal. The battle lasted 4 hours but felt like minutes to the dragon crews. They moved with perfect coordination, supporting each other without needing orders or communication. When one ship was damaged, 2 others immediately moved to protect it while continuing their own attacks. Commander Rick Stone aboard Stormbringer found himself laughing as he destroyed his 5th enemy vessel. The sound was not entirely human anymore. It carried the satisfaction of a predator that had found worthy prey after a long hunt. "Dragonwing, this is Stormbringer," Rick announced over the common channel. "I count 15 enemy ships remaining. Should we let any escape too? Carry word back to their fleet?" Captain Williams considered the question while his ship tore the engines off a Zephyrian cruiser. "Negative, Stormbringer. No survivors. We want their main fleet to wonder what happened here." The last Zephyrian ship died 20 minutes later, its hull cracked open and bleeding atmosphere into space. The Dragon fleet regrouped in the debris field. their crews feeling a satisfaction that was both human and something darker. Back on the Zephyrian main fleet, Supreme War Leader Krathvos received the final transmission from Commander Zixtholer. The message was garbled and filled with static, but the terror in the veteran commander's voice came through clearly. "They are not what we expected," Zixtholer had screamed before his ship was destroyed. "These humans fight like nothing we have encountered before. They move as one mind but strike with individual fury. It is as if they have become the predators and we are now the prey." Krathvos studied the battle reports with growing unease. His forces had just lost 60 ships to an enemy that should have been helpless against Zephyrian military might. Worse, there were no survivors to question and no wreckage from human ships to study. "War Leader, what are your orders?" asked his chief strategist. Krathvos looked at the image of the small blue planet that had seemed so defenseless just hours before. "Send word to all fleet commanders. We advance on Earth as planned, but we approach with maximum caution. These humans may be more dangerous than our initial assessment suggested." On Earth, Admiral Thompson watched the battle reports with cold satisfaction. The Dragon crews had performed exactly as designed. They had not just won a victory. They had sent a message that would spread fear through the enemy fleet. Dr. Brooks monitored the psychological profiles of the returning Dragon crews. "Admiral, the bonding process has exceeded our expectations. The crews are showing enhanced aggression, improved tactical thinking, and complete dedication to hunting their enemies. Any problems with the transformation?" Dr. Brooks hesitated before answering. "They are becoming exactly what we designed them to be. The question is whether we will be able to change them back when this war is over." Admiral Thompson watched the Dragon ships return to Earth's orbital defense stations. Their crews had tasted victory and enemy blood. They were no longer the peaceful humans who had left Earth just days before. "One problem at a time, Doctor," he said quietly. "Right now we need predators. We can worry about making them human again after we win." The Zephyrian main fleet hung at the edge of the solar system like a dark cloud of metal and death. Supreme War Leader Krathvos paced across his command bridge with nervous energy that his subordinates had never seen before. 300 massive warships waited for his orders, but for the first time in his long career, he was unsure how to proceed. Chief Strategist Yixnoller approached with new intelligence reports clutched in his four hands. "War Leader, we have received disturbing communications from our outer colonies. Human ships are attacking our supply bases and outposts throughout the sector." Krathvos stopped pacing and focused his large yellow eyes on the strategist. "What kind of attacks? Are they trying to cut off our supply lines?" "No, sir, these are not military strikes in any traditional sense," Yixnoller replied with fear creeping into his voice. "They appear to be hunting expeditions. The humans are systematically tracking down and destroying every Zephyrian presence they can find." Meanwhile, scattered across human space, the Dragon fleet had divided into small hunting packs. Each group of 3 or 4 ships stalked Zephyrian forces with the patience and skill of apex predators. They had learned to enjoy the hunt itself as much as the final kill. Captain Susan Lewis commanded her ship, Shadow Strike, as it approached a Zephyrian supply convoy near the ruins of Prosperity Station. Her vessel moved through the asteroid field like a ghost, using the floating rocks as cover while she studied her prey through advanced sensors. 3 cargo ships and 2 escort vessels, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Pete Harrison. The escorts are light cruisers, probably carrying about 50 crew members each. Susan smiled with an expression that would have terrified anyone who knew her before the transformation. "Target the cargo ships first. I want the escorts to watch their supplies burn before they die." The attack was swift and precise. Shadow Strike emerged from behind a large asteroid and unleashed a barrage of plasma fire that turned the first cargo vessel into expanding gas and debris. The Zephyrian escorts scrambled to respond, but their weapons could not lock onto the human ship as it darted between asteroids like a living thing. "Second cargo ship destroyed," Harrison reported with satisfaction. "The escorts are trying to flee." "No," Susan said coldly. "Disable their engines." I want them to sit there and think about what is going to happen to them. This was the new tactical doctrine that Dr. Brooks had programmed into the Dragon AI systems. The goal was not just to win battles, but to break the enemy's will to fight. Every engagement was designed to maximize Zephyrian fear while feeding humanity's growing hunger for revenge. Commander Betty Clark piloted her ship Stormbringer through the wreckage of a Zephyrian forward operating base. Her crew worked in perfect silence as they hunted for survivors hiding in the debris. They had learned that leaving witnesses alive served an important purpose. "Sir, we have detected life signs in that damaged command module," reported her weapons. "Officer, excellent," Betty replied. "Open a communication channel. I want them to see our faces when they report back to their fleet." The terrified Zephyrian commander appeared on her screen, his crystal armor cracked and bleeding. "Please, we surrender. We have families on our homeworld." Betty leaned forward in her command chair with cold eyes. "So did we tell your war leader that humanity remembers every colony you destroyed. Tell him that we are coming for all of you." The psychological warfare was working exactly as planned. Intercepted Zephyrian communications showed growing panic among their forces. Soldiers who had never known fear were now afraid to leave their ships. Commanders who had conquered dozens of worlds were paralyzed by reports of humans who fought like demons. Captain Danny Rodriguez aboard Death's Head received one of these communications during a raid on a Zephyrian mining operation. The alien voices carried something that his species had never heard from the proud reptilian warriors before today. "They speak of us like we are monsters," reported his communication officer, Dr. Amy Sullivan. "Good," Danny replied without emotion. "That is exactly what we have become." Back on Earth, Dr. Brooks monitored the psychological profiles of the Dragon crews with growing concern. The transformation was proceeding faster than she had anticipated. Each victory made them hungrier for the next kill. Each successful hunt made them more focused on destruction and less connected to their former humanity. "Admiral Thompson, we may have a problem," she reported during their daily briefing. "The crews are adapting to the AI bonding process too well. Their aggression levels are increasing beyond our original parameters." Admiral Thompson studied the battle reports on his screens. In just 2 weeks, the Dragon fleet had destroyed 47 Zephyrian installations and over 200 enemy vessels. The aliens were retreating from 3 entire star systems. "Are they still following orders?" he asked, but their interpretation of those orders is becoming more extreme. When we tell them to eliminate enemy forces, they are now hunting down individual survivors who pose no military threat. Admiral Thompson was quiet for a long moment. "Doctor, those aliens killed thousands of innocent human civilians without mercy. If our dragons want to return that favor, I am not going to stop them." Dr. Brooks looked at him with worried eyes. "Sir, what happens when there are no more Zephyrians to hunt? What will we do with 47 ships full of human predators who have learned to enjoy killing?" Before Admiral Thompson could answer, emergency alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Colonel Grace Mitchell ran up to them with urgent news. "Admiral, long-range sensors show the Zephyrian main fleet is beginning to move. They are advancing toward Earth at maximum speed." Admiral Thompson smiled grimly. "Then it is time for the final hunt. Signal all Dragon ships to return to Earth immediately. The Dragons have had their practice. Now they get to face the entire enemy fleet at once." In space, Captain Jake Morrison received the recall order aboard Night Terror. His ship had just finished destroying a Zephyrian research station, and his crew was already searching for their next target. The order to return to Earth felt almost disappointing. "Sir, are we abandoning the hunt?" asked Commander Lisa Adams. Jake studied the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. 300 ships against their 41 remaining Dragon vessels. The odds should have been terrifying, but instead he felt only anticipation. "No, Lisa," he replied with a predator's smile. "We are just changing hunting grounds. The Zephyrians are bringing all of their prey to us at once." As the Dragon fleet began its journey back to Earth, each crew member felt the same cold excitement. They were no longer the humans who had left Earth weeks ago. They had become something harder, hungrier, and infinitely more dangerous. The final battle would determine whether humanity remained a species of explorers or transformed permanently into the galaxy's apex predators. Supreme War Leader Krathvos stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. Behind him stretched the most powerful armada the Zephyrian Collective had ever assembled. 300 warships carrying enough firepower to destroy entire solar systems moved in perfect formation toward Earth, but for the first time in his long career of conquest, Krathvos felt uncertainty gnawing at his mind. The reports from his outer colonies painted a picture of human forces that defied everything his people knew about warfare. These mammals did not fight like civilized beings. They hunted like wild beasts driven by pure hatred. War Leader, we are detecting 41 human vessels approaching from multiple vectors, reported Field Commander Zeph Kohler, one of the few surviving fleet leaders from the outer campaigns. They are moving to surround our formation. Krathvos studied the tactical display with growing unease. 41 ships against 300. Either these humans have lost their minds, or they know something we do not. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of Night Terror, watching the massive enemy fleet through his ship's sensors. The Zephyrian Armada was an impressive sight that should have filled any reasonable person with terror. Instead, Jake felt only cold anticipation and hunger for the coming battle. All Dragon ships, this is Night Terror, he spoke into his communication system. His voice carried an authority that came from months of successful hunting. Today we finish what these reptiles started when they murdered our families. No survivors, no retreat, no mercy. The 41 dragon ships spread out around the enemy fleet like wolves surrounding a herd of prey animals. Each vessel moved with deadly grace that seemed impossible for machines of war. Their crews had evolved beyond normal human limits into something that existed only to kill. Captain Tony Williams aboard Black Dragon studied his targeting computers with the patience of a born predator. Weapons locked on lead destroyer, beginning attack run. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos guided Crimson Fang toward the enemy formation with cold precision. Her ship's AI whispered target priorities directly into her mind while she selected which Zephyrian vessels would die first. The connection between human consciousness and machine intelligence had become so complete that she could no longer tell where her thoughts ended and the ship's programming began. Multiple targets acquired, Maria reported. Initiating attack. Pattern Omega. The Dragon fleet struck without warning from 6 different directions simultaneously. Their black hulls made them nearly invisible against the darkness of space until the moment they opened fire. Streams of focused energy tore through Zephyrian shields and armor like they were made of paper instead of advanced alien materials. Commander Zeph Kohler watched in horror as 12 of his ships exploded in the first 30 seconds of battle. Impossible. How are they penetrating our defenses so easily? Krathvos gripped his command chair with all 4 hands as more ships died around him. All vessels, concentrate fire on the human ships. They cannot survive our combined firepower. But the dragon ships moved like living things through the enemy formation. They struck fast and hard before disappearing behind larger Zephyrian vessels to avoid return fire. When cornered, they fought with a ferocity that shattered alien nerves and broke enemy formations. Captain Rickstone aboard Stormbringer found himself laughing as he destroyed his 8th enemy vessel of the day. The sound was not entirely human anymore. It carried the satisfaction of an apex predator that had found the perfect hunting ground. Dragonwing, Stormbringer reporting 15 confirmed kills, Rick announced over the common channel. These reptiles burn beautifully. Commander Betty Clark piloted Death's Head through a cluster of enemy cruisers like a shark moving through a school of fish. Her weapons officer, Dr. Amy Sullivan, selected targets with cold efficiency that would have horrified her former self. Sir, enemy flagship is attempting to withdraw from the battle, Amy reported. Negative, Betty replied. Target their engines. I want that war leader to watch his entire fleet die before we kill him. The battle lasted 18 hours but felt like minutes to the Dragon crews. They moved with perfect coordination that came from shared consciousness and common purpose. When one ship was damaged, two others immediately moved to protect it while continuing their own attacks. When enemies tried to flee, the humans hunted them down with relentless determination. Commander Nancy, right of Apex Predator, counted debris fields where enemy ships used to be. Dragon Wing, I count over 200 confirmed kills. Remaining Zephyrian forces are trying to retreat. Captain Morrison studied his tactical display with cold satisfaction. The mighty armada that had come to destroy Earth was now scattered wreckage floating in space. Only a handful of enemy ships remained, and they were fleeing in all directions like frightened animals. All dragons pursue and destroy, let none escape to threaten human space again. Supreme War Leader Krathvos sat alone on the bridge of his dying flagship. His proud fleet was gone. His warriors were dead. The species that was supposed to be easy prey had become the hunters, and his people were now the victims. War Leader, we must surrender, pleaded his tactical officer. Perhaps the humans will show mercy. Krathvos looked at the officer with sad eyes. You have not been listening to their communications. These creatures no longer understand the concept of mercy. We turned them into monsters, and now they will hunt us to extinction. The last Zephyrian ship died 3 hours later, its hull cracked open by concentrated plasma fire from 5 Dragon vessels. Captain Morrison watched the final explosion with emotions that were both human and something darker. Dragon Wing, this is Night Terror, mission accomplished. The Zephyrian Collective no longer exists as a military force. Back on Earth, Admiral Thompson received the battle reports with mixed feelings. The threat to humanity was over, but the cost of victory was becoming clear. The Dragon crews had become exactly what they needed to be to win this war, but they were no longer the same people who had left Earth months ago. Dr. Brooks monitored the returning fleet with growing concern. Admiral, the psychological profiles show complete transformation. These crews have adapted so well to their role as hunters that they may not be able to readjust to peaceful life. Admiral Thompson watched as the Dragon ships entered Earth's orbital space. Even in friendly territory, their crews scanned for threats and potential targets. They had become living weapons that could not easily be turned off. The galaxy needed to learn that humanity has teeth, he said quietly. But now we need to figure out what to do with 41 ships full of apex predators who have developed a taste for blood. Captain Morrison stood in his quarters looking at a photograph of his sister Emma and her children. The rage that had driven him for months was finally quiet, but in its place was something cold and permanent that would never leave. He and his crews had saved humanity, but they had become something that the peaceful humans of Earth might someday fear. The colonies were avenged and the enemy was destroyed, but the humans who had won this victory were no longer the same species that had first reached for the stars. They had become the dragons of Earth, and dragons never truly sleep once. They have awakened.